Just recently, my colleagues and I released a podcast on the need for a revival in Christian education. We hope that this encourages more Christians in Grand Prairie, Alberta, and across our nation to think about the need for Christian education, pursue it, build institutions, and more. In my younger days, I heard some Christians defend the use of the public schools with a missional argument. Well, our kids are being a salt and a light in the public education system. Well, I am sure that was true in some cases, yet I think most Christians are beginning to realize that the public school system is actually the secular government's mission school to educate our children away from principles of faith and religion. As we see cultural decline across our nation and in our public schools, it is primarily manifested in the public education system and the hospitals, which are government run. For many years now, Marxists have run the institutions of higher education and even the grade schools and the high schools, and our children have been their mission field. We see the fruits of Marxist ideology across our nation. Their fields have matured. There's been a relentless push to get into private institutions as well. Not that it is an organized push per se. Many of our children are being educated in ideologically Marxist institutions. They then go on to teach in private grade schools and high schools and Christian universities. And so those Marxist ideologies continue to creep into all the institutions, all the way from our think tanks to our seminaries, to our parachurch organizations, to our pulpits. The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx was actually required reading in my post-secondary education. So was Nietzsche and Darwin. Now, it might surprise you that I did not go to a secular institution. I went to New St. Andrews College, a liberal arts school in Moscow, Idaho. Now, Moscow, Idaho is a very liberal town, with the University of Idaho being the largest educational institution in town, and the University of Washington just up the road in Pullman, Washington. At New St. Andrews, my classmates and I were encouraged and expected to critically engage with various texts. But we were not trained in the intellectual categories of unbelief. Skepticism towards the authority of Scripture, unbelief about matters of faith. Faith and science were not pitted against each other. Good theology was integrated into various academic disciplines, like science and logic and philosophy and music and history. It is this holistic view of the world that Christian parents need to ensure is instilled into their children. The Christian scriptures are indeed coherent and consistent with the way that God made the world. We as Christian parents need to ensure that our children are not being trained in doubt and unbelief from a very young age. Yes, they should be aware of what is happening in the world, and they should be prepared to interact with that doubt and refute it. If they do indeed end up in a secular university, for whatever reason. But that means that we should be already educating them thoroughly in the very youngest years. There are different theories of education, and there is room for debate on that in the Christian church. I believe that in the grade school years, we should be shaping their imagination in biblical ways. In high school, we should be shaping critical thinking along biblical lines. We should be preparing them to accomplish the creation mandate given in Genesis 1 and Matthew 26. We should not want them to be the mission field for Marxism and secularism and scientism and statism. We want children who know God and want to understand His world more and more. We want scientists and doctors and lawyers and theologians par excellence. We want young men and women who want above all to bring all into submission to Jesus Christ rather than being slaves of men. We want bold men and women who live by faith and not by sight. We want thinkers and laborers and leaders. We want blue-collar workers and white-collar workers. We want to win higher education and the industries and the hospitals for Christ. We want godly men and women who love to learn, who have inquisitive minds, who love to be challenged, who readily abandon a bad idea for a good idea or an even better idea. So, let's get started.